Good day, my name is Ilza and I will tell you a bit more about the Peru SAP HCM Payroll. This payroll was developed by the EPI-USE HCM Payroll Country Versions team. In EPI-USE, we have developed a number of different country versions, as you can see from this list, and Peru is also one of the country versions that was developed by EPI-USE. Let's start by looking at a country version overview. Let's look at the definition of a country version. This is the adaptation of SAP software to cover legal requirements and common local business practices. Now, let's look at the EPI-USE country version's characteristics. There are separate payroll programs that enable country-specific legal calculations. Configuration settings per country allow business rules to be different. We find that multiple solutions can exist in the same system at once. We also find that the EPI-USE country versions look and feel like SAP standard country versions. And there's also standard integration with other SAP modules like finance. Let's have a look at the country version components. First of all, there's a payroll driver that will execute the payroll. Now for this payroll driver, we need a couple of information, and therefore info types, specific country version info types are provided to maintain master data, and these work in conjunction with the standard SAP info types. There are also wage types, so model wage types that's specific to the country version are also provided. Then we find maintenance views. In here we find a number of configuration tables that are used to configure the specific requirements of the country. We also supply functions and operations that are used to calculate the legal deductions. For each country version, we have a payroll schema and rules that controls the payroll processing. So once a payroll has been run, we can also have payroll reports. There are a couple of standard reports that works with our country versions. For example, remuneration statement, wage type reporter, the FICO posting program, and bank transfer preparation. We also provide payroll clusters for the country versions where payroll results are stored. And then also legal reports for the different countries are supplied, and these are basically the tax certificates, reports and interfaces, also social insurance reports and interfaces, and then also any other legal HCM reports. So all of these make up components for the country versions. Now the features of our country versions are as follows. The business benefits. We will have multi-country HCM payrolls in a single system. It's highly configurable per country. There's seamless integration with other SAP modules, and we are enabling SAP best practices. What about the technical features? It's developed according to SAP localization guidelines. It's not affected by SAP support packs, and it upgrades easily. Let's look at maintenance and support. Ongoing maintenance and support with SLAs. There's a client portal with a ticketing system and downloading of patches. An online configuration guide is included, and even user training option is available. Let's also look at some compliance features. So there are the standard international processing, income tax calculations, social insurance calculations, legal payments and allowances, off-cycle payroll, statutory and legal reports and interfaces, multi-currency support, the availability in official languages, and all legal updates are provided by EPI-USE. If we look at the international processing, we make use of standard payroll organization, payroll areas, payroll periods, accumulation calendars. There's different payrolls, monthly, semi-monthly, weekly. There's a standard SAP absence valuation and are used time quotas, time wage type valuation, factoring, deductions, benefits, integration to compensation management, loans, data medium exchange, remuneration statements, posting of your payroll results to accounting and wage type reporter. So all this standard international processing is also available in the different country versions. Let us start looking now at the Peru payroll, and we will find in SAP standard menu there's an option now for Peru in the standard human resources payroll menu tree, and it will be demonstrated in the next slide. If we look at the SAP Easy Access menu, we find a node for human resources. If we click on that, we find the payroll section and the payroll the Americas. Under there we find Peru, and in here we see all the options that's available for the Peru payroll. If we look at the node for payroll, we find the transactions for simulation, release payroll, start payroll, check results, corrections, exit payroll, as well as remuneration statement. We also find all the bank transfer transactions underneath here. Then there's also a section for off-cycle. It's all the standard SAP transactions. And then if we look at subsequent activities, there are some activities that's per payroll period, like posting to accounting. In here we find the SUNAT file generation. Also under reporting, there's the social insurance reporting. We find under other periods also reporting, the Peru specific payroll reports. And then we find under annual, there's a section for tax reports, social insurance reports on an annual basis. And then if we move down, we will find this is pretty much SAP standard, tools, information systems. So all of this, just to emphasize again, you will find under the Peru option in the menu tree. What is also provided for the Peru payroll is an IMG, where one can find all the steps necessary to configure the Peru payroll, as we will demonstrate in the next slide. When you go to the IMG with Transactions Pro, you will find under the node Payroll, there's an option for Payroll Peru. In there you will find all the different elements that are related to the Peru payroll country version. You can expand them all. The first one will give you the standard settings for any payroll. Sub is standard. Then you will find the Peru specifics under employer data. For example, it could be that you have to update a feature or maybe a table, different table entries. And as I said, you will find the different sections. For example, the tax rates again. It's a table. Sometimes you maybe have to fill in a constant. You will select Peru. You will see the name of the constant, description, dates, and the value. So all of these different sections is what you will find in your Peru country version, and in here you can make all the necessary configuration settings. It's all found here under Payroll Peru. We also provide a Peru payroll schema with rules, and it is called -PE0, the standard schema, and it will be demonstrated in the next slide. To go to schemas, you use transaction PE01. You enter the schema name. The standard schema for Peru is -PE0. It takes you to Peruvian standard payroll schema. If you click on here, you will see the schema. You will find that there are a lot of sub-schemas. Some of them, starting with an X, will be your standard or international schemas. Sometimes you will find one that's -PE, and those ones are the ones that is specific to Peru. So if you look down, you will see there's some that starts with an X, there's another Peru specific one. And as you go down, you will see more of them. You can find, if you click on one of them, you will see there's a specific schema for further payments and deductions for Peru. And in there you will find specific functions related to Peru. You will find rules specific to Peru. For example, if you click on the rule, there you will see the rule. You can do an overview of the rule, just like a normal rule. So all of this you will find in the schema. If you page down, you will find more information, processing, deductions and storage. You will find, again, different functions, different rules. So it's just a standard sub functionality. So there's a standard schema with sub-schemas. In there you will find different rules and different functions, and even in a rule you will find operations that's specific to Peru. The Peru payroll also has different functions and operations. These are used for all legal calculations, and we will show a bit more of them in the following slide. Functions and operations are found within transaction PE04. In here we have a lot of functions for Peru specific. They will all start with an _PE star. So if we look at them, we will find a list of all the specific Peru functions. If we have a look at one of them, for example, the _PETX for taxes, we can see that there are a number of parameters with values associated with them. If you want more information, you can click on that button, and in here we will find a lot of useful information explaining the functionality of this function. And one can have a look at the code, the other code that sits behind this function. The same applies to operations. The Peru-specific ones will start with _PE. So if we have a look at the list of the available ones, for example, let's look at one of them, _PESC, add wage type to SCRT. If we open it, we will also see the parameters. Again, there's some information behind explaining the purpose, the syntax of this operation, and again the source text can be found also behind this operation. So in the Peru solution we have then a couple of functions and operations that is used for this functionality. For the Peru payroll, we also provide a lot of features, and these features have different functions and can also be used in the solution, as we explain in the next slide. Let's have a look at the features provided for the Peru payroll solution. Now the features will start mainly with a -PE. So if we have a look at all of those, we will see there are quite a number of features provided, and the purpose of features are varied. some cases it's used to switch on functionality or switch it off. It can be used to set values. It can be used to default values. So it's all there for the customer to configure the system according to their specific requirements. So it gives some flexibility to the customer. So let's have a look at some of them. For example, let's look at this one, the profit share payment eligibility. So in here we see there is some functionality, but it can be switched on or off depending on a decision you make in your structure. So it gives you that flexibility. For other examples is, for example, the PETX default values for your tax info type 9315. In here, default values can be set up so that whenever the info type is created, it defaults some values for you. This is just a straightforward one, but it can also add a decision into here. In the same vein, you can have, let's look at this one, PENM. It's mappings for your info type two fields for employee names. So in here, you can set up the name format that you would like, the fields that come from info type 2, your voornaam, nachtnaam, and you can set it up according to your own requirements. Some of the features can be a bit more complex than others. In this case, there's a feature for extraordinary bonuses percentage that's based on info type 9316 data. And in here, you can have a number of decisions based on different things. You can apply different bonus percentages. A feature can also be very simple. In this case, you just have to say, do you want to base your bonus on employee or employer affiliation? And in this case, all employees will be based on employer affiliation for this example. So we see that there are a number of features and that they are very useful in helping the client to set up certain things according to their own very specific requirements. Payroll, the income tax. We start off by showing you the income tax info types. There are two info types that are provided for the Peru payroll, and we will show you this also in the next slide. In the Peru payroll country version, two info types are provided for income tax purposes. Now the first one is number 9315, which is for Peru income tax for an employee. And if we look at this info type, we see there are a number of fields. The first one is where you can select a bonus option. Now the available options are no bonus, Independence Day bonus, Christmas bonus, or Independence Day and Christmas bonus. There's an option for tax class ID, a resident versus a non-resident employee. And there's also an option that if the employee is exempted from tax, that can also be specified. So this is the Peru income tax info type. Then there's also another info type, 9301, for tax totals. Within this info type, tax data from a previous company or a previous employer can be loaded in here to be taken into consideration for the payrolls run within the new company. So you can specify the name of the previous company and the code, and in here the values of the taxable income or the tax paid or off-cycle runs can also be added in here, and this will then be used in the current payroll. So there are two info types that's specific for tax purposes for the Peru country version. The Peru payroll also have different tax tables that needs to be set up. Now most of these are legal entries, so these entries will be updated by EPI-USE and will be sent with updates to the client, so they don't have to update these themselves. but we will show you these tables in the next slide. To find the tax tables specific to Peru, there are two ways to find them. Firstly, through the IMG, as was explained earlier. In the Peru Payroll IMG, you will find a section on tax, and in here you will find all the links that's necessary. So, for example, if you want to go to the tax rates table, you can just go through in here and you will find the table. And the same applies to the rest of this. Alternatively, one can go straight to transaction SM31, and the Peru tables specific to our country version starts with the /EPI-USE /the view v_T7PE, and if we put a star, you will see all the specific Peru payroll tables, and there are the different tax ones, and again there the tax rate one is T7PE05. So that's another way to go straight into this table, either in a display view or in a change view. So accessing these tables either through the IMG or have a look at all the tables that's in this format. So let's look at some other tax elements in the Peru payroll. We have a tax schema. The schema is -BE8. In here we will find tax functions, and we will also find tax rules. Also, we provide different clusters, tax clusters, that stores information that is related to tax specific and that will be used for calculations and for reporting. Look at the income tax calculation for Peru. It is basically based on an annual tax table. The income tax is also calculated on a period-to-date basis, and the tax deduction periods are configurable. The income from other employers can also be used for projection purposes. The tax classification is based on resident versus non-resident employees. We provide different tax types and exemption reasons. We also make provision for PDT codes. Also included are tax credits for December runs, bonus runs, termination, or retro runs. The tax calculation is also based on a tax when paid principle. This means that retro calculations are handled using the out and influx principle. And there's also a gross up for tax and social insurance calculations. Let's run the payroll for Peru using the Peru payroll driver, the relevant payroll schema for Peru for a specific period. We put on the lock. Once we expand the lock, we move down to the place where the tax is calculated. We will find this whole section on income tax. In here, we see the sequence or the steps used for calculating tax. You can see it started off with generating the CST table. Then there was the infotype 9301, the values, tax data from a previous employee is loaded if available. Then we see the calculation of the tax. If we expand that, we can have a look at the input. In here, it shows all the tables that was used, all the information that was read. We can open the processing, and in here we find a log that shows us the sequence of events in calculating the tax. It's actually very handy to go through it. We see the different sections, legal bonus, the UIT, the projection, annual equivalent, and it actually ends up with wage type 400, the tax wage type. So in this log we can actually see how this tax was calculated. And in the output, we can see the input table now has new tax wage type added to it, the tax wage type, annual equivalent, and all the relevant BDT codes. And thereafter, there's a couple of other steps with different rules to store wage types based on processing classes. So all of this one can also follow in the log, in the payroll log for income tax. Also, if we have a look at the payroll results, we open up that, we can see that there's a couple of tax tables in this payroll cluster. For example, the ST table. In here, we find the tax information for the period that we're running according to a tax split. The same applies to the CST, that's the tax information for the year, also according to a tax split. In this case, the payroll was run already for 6 months with only the one tax split. And also the SCR table with all the cumulative values for the year, also according to the tax split. So all the necessary information from the payroll is then stored in the payroll cluster. At social insurances, we can see that the following are supplied. There's an option for pension calculation, which includes standard contribution, mixed commissions, and voluntary contributions. There's also an option for health insurance calculations, for additional risk calculation like EPS. There's calculations for levies and life insurance calculations. For social insurances, we also provide an info type. It's called social insurance and other taxes info types. And in here, all the information related to social insurance can be stored. And this will be demonstrated in the next slide. For our Peru country solution version, we will find an info type 9316 that is called Peru Social Insurances and Other Taxes, and this will be used to capture all the information related to social insurances. If we have a look at this info type, we will see that there are a number of tabs: health, pension, additional risk, levies, and life insurance. Underneath each tab, there are certain fields that can be filled in. In this instance, for health, one can fill in a number. There are different options. If it's exempted, one can put in exemption reason, some more indicators, EPS type, one can select it from a drop-down list. So this is all the information related to health. The same applies to pension. There are a join date, there can be put in a number, a pension type can be selected. Also, if it's exempted, an exemption reason can be added. There are some tick boxes, and in this case also contributions can be added in here for pension. If we look at the additional risks tab, we see one can select a type here, an option, or either give an exemption reason. And the same applies to levies. There are different options to select from, or give an exemption reason. And also life insurance, there are different options, or an exemption can be applied. And all of this information is found in this info type, the Peru Social Insurance and Other Taxes. Social insurance rates, these are all updated in different tables. And as with the tax ones, if they are legal ones, these updates will be provided by EPI-USE, so the client does not need to update these tables themselves. Again, to find the tables that are related to social insurance, there are two ways to go about it. One can either go to the IMG, the Payroll Peru specific IMG, and underneath there is the section Social Insurance, and in here one will find a link to all the different tables. For example, if I click on the pension insurance type, I will see all the different insurance types. And the same, if I want to look at the pension insurance details, I can set this up per type. For example, if I choose 21, I can see all the different values that need to be completed for all the different contributions. So all the other tables can be found here. Alternatively, I can go to SM31 from there, all the tables that's related to the Peru country version will start with /EPI-USE/V_T7PE star. If I do a drop down here, you will see a list of all the different tables that's applicable. And for example, if I want to look at the pension insurance types again, there I can find the number of the table. I can see all the entries there. Or alternatively, if I look at this table, again, per type, it takes me into this table where I can see all the different contribution entries. So either I can use the IMG or I can have a look and find a table, the appropriate table under this view. If we have a look at other social insurance elements, we will see that there's a schema again, -PE7, with SI functions that will calculate the social insurance, and all of this information is also stored in SI cluster in the payroll that can be used for calculation and reporting. To have a look at the social insurance calculations in payroll, we will run a payroll again with the Peru payroll driver, the Peru payroll schema. We will put on the log. Once we've run it, we will move down and expand the schema up to the point where we find the social insurance section. In here, we find a whole section for social insurances, and in here we will see there's a payroll function _PSI, and all the different sections are handled here. For example, if we double click on that, for additional risk work insurance, we will see the inputs and we will see the processing. The log will show exactly how these wage types were created, and the information will be stored in the input table. This applies to basically all of the rest, the health option, inputs, the calculation, and in the end we will see the wage types added. So if we look at pension again, also there's the pension, the calculation, all the different calculations, and then in the end we have the final output table. So the log will show us a lot of detail on exactly how this is calculated. And if we look at the payroll results, we will also find in the payroll cluster there is this table SV_PE that will give us all the information for the specific period that we've run it for. We will find in here all the different information that is related to social insurances. The Peru payroll solution also makes provision for legal bonuses like Independence Day bonus, Christmas bonus, and extraordinary bonus. And these have different features. When they're payable, they can be paid in a normal payroll or an off-cycle payroll. And they are also specified in the Peru income tax info type. In the next slide, we will show you a bit more on our legal bonuses solution. In this example, I will show you how a legal bonus is calculated in July, in this case independence bonuses. So we can pay it via an off-cycle. So there's a payroll reason. The reason is legal bonuses. You have to put in the date, and this date is also checked in the system to make sure that it's a valid date for Independence Day bonus. So when I run this and I open the log, I can see that this is a bonus payment, and if I find the specific place where the bonuses are handled in the schema, legal bonuses, you can see in this case it is a special run. So in here, in its original period, there's this option of off-cycle legal bonuses. If I double click on here, and I can find that there's now a wage type that was generated. This is all in my configuration setup. If I expand on these tables, and I also find internal tables that will show me my wage type, with all the different information and also the periods that were taken in consideration and the bonus days that were valid for this off-cycle legal bonus. So all of this is built into this function, and in the final processing I will find, here's my independence bonus. If I expand this, my Independence Day bonus wage stub that was generated, as well as an extra bonus for Independence Day. So all of this is taken care for, and it can be run in a off-cycle run or in my normal payroll run. There are also other legal payments that are included in the solution. For example, CTS payments for compensation for times of service. These payments are normally paid during May and November or on termination. The payment is also based on a 6 months average earnings. There's also indemnization or termination. That is payments which is paid out on termination before a contract has expired. There's also a specific infotype 9305, that's provided for termination pay. And this is all demonstrated for you in the next slide. In this example, I'll show you how termination will be handled. There will be the standard action that will show that there was a leaving action. And then for the Peru country version, there's another infotype that was introduced, and it's called terminations, infotype 9305. And if we look in here for the specific employee, you can specify termination type, contract date, probation end date, and we can even put in override value. So based on these in the configuration, we'll determine if this person is eligible to receive termination pay. So if we go to the payroll again, and we run the payroll for this person in the month of termination, and if we will go down to in the log, we'll find the section where termination pay. Again, there is a function, and in here we will see the input table. We'll read the information from table 9305. If we look at the processing, we will see that the payroll take in consideration the date, the completed months, there's a termination factor, termination payment, and it will show how the system gets to this termination pay amount. And if we look at the output, we expand this table, and we will find the termination or indemnization payment. Also, because of the bonus that's now still outstanding, there's a termination independent day bonus and extra bonus also that is applicable. So all of this is also handled in the solution. The fees included in our Peru payroll solution is profit sharing. The profit shares can be paid in a normal run or off-cycle run. There's also a new infotype provided, infotype 9317. This information can be populated from a profit share calculation report, and there's also a performance bonus that is paid based on your profit share allocation. In the next slide, we will show you a demonstration of this. For the profit sharing functionality to work properly, there are a number of configuration settings to be made. These can be done in the IMG and the section Payroll Peru under the section Profit Share. In here, there are a number of steps that one has to follow. For example, setting the eligibility, looking at different sectors, and provide the details like 10% for this sector will be shared. The different components, the profit to be shared, 500,000 for this company, etc. The wage types that will be created in a payroll once an employee is eligible for that. So all of this first needs to be done before one can start the process. The next step would be to run the profit share calculation program. In here you would specify a period, your employees, and then also specify a payroll reason if this is to be run in an off-cycle run, like in this case, in the profit sharing run with a date. So this is specified here. The output of this report, you can first do the display profit share data. So in here, it gives a number of tabs. In the first tab, it shows all the employees that were selected. Then the employee total. So these are the ones that's eligible. This is going to be the distribution for them. The employer totals. Remember, based on our example, there was 500,000, which 10% for that sector is to be distributed, and 50% of that goes to daily share and remaining share. So these 25,000 and 25,000 amounts are then split between the different employees. And this information can now be uploaded into InfoType 9317. So once you're happy with this, one can select the upload data to 9317, run the program. It will tell you that 6 records were created on InfoType 9317. If I just check one of these employees, number 3, couple of zeros, 73, if I go to this employee now, this is the employee. I go to the info type 9317 for Peru profit sharing. If I check in there, there's all the different numbers, the off-cycle reason. So this employee share is stored in this info type. So if I go and run a payroll now for this employee, for this reason, for this date, if I expand again the schema, get to the point. If it's a special run, which it is, there's this profit share function again, underscore PEPS. And in here we can see the input to this is the InfoType 9317. There's the information, and the wage types that we've specified is now used, and these are now created. So this is the whole process for profit sharing. Some more features that's included in the Peru payroll solution are other payments like seniority pay or long service leave pay. There are also a number of off-cycle payrolls that are available through the workbench, like legal bonuses, special payments, loan out payments, corrections, CTS, profit sharing, regular period on demand, and vacation advance. Then also very important is reporting. There are a number of statutory and legal reports and interfaces that are provided. For example, the SUNAT file, CTS reports, pension reports, profit share reports, ITF inclusion-exclusion letters, employment and termination certificates, tax certificates, and we will demonstrate this on the next slide. The Peru payroll reports can be found under the Peru payroll menu, Human Resources, Payroll, Americas, Peru. There's subsequent activities, reporting there, the SUNAT file. There's a section for social insurances, there's a section for annual reporting, tax and social insurance. There are other periods as well, we'll get back to that. So let's have a look at one of these reports, social insurance, the annual private pension report. If we look at this report, most of the report you will see will have option for ALV and for PDF. So if we run this report with the ALV option, we do our selections, and what we will find here, the ALV will show us all the employees that's selected, and this we can download to a spreadsheet if you want to use this information. So it gives us information on all the employees. And then if you look at the PDF option, If we run this, we will find a PDF version. We can do a print preview. And in here we find a PDF version. There's document 1 of 2. It means there's another one. And we can now either print or save these reports. Okay, so let's have a look at another example. The monthly pension upload file. It's the same principle. There's just look at the variant. We can run an ALB for a specific to see the different employees that's selected. Now in this case, it shows us this format. We can see, okay, for this specific company, if we double click there, we can see all the information that was selected, all the employees. So we can find employees maybe and see who's selected or not, or included in the file. And in this case, we can export this file, download it to a PC. So in some cases, there's files that we can download. Let's look at the tax, fifth category tax certificate. We basically have the same here. So if we look at this example, again, we can have a preview before we download it. So if we run this, so there's one of 8 documents. I can decrease it a bit to see all the information, print it, save it, move on to another document, decrease a bit so that I can see the values. So all of this is in PDF format, and then I can also do a PC download or a server download. Then there are other periods, other types of reports. So let's have a look at, there's the ITF inclusion, employment certificate. Let's run the termination certificate. I have a variant here. Again, okay, in this case it's just a form, there's no ALB because it's a certificate. Okay, I can do a print preview again. And again, there's the certificate. Can just decrease it. And some of this information we can do in the configuration. What is the information we want to print in here? So again, if we go back to the IMG, the Payroll Peru, there's a section employer data, different employer keys that we can set up, employer details, and in here we see there's a contact person and a title, HR manager. So if we go back to this report, we will see this is printed here, and this can all be specified by the reporting contact. So there's a link back to the table. So this is also possible. Then there are a couple of CTS reports. Just have a look at one of them. If I run this one, again it shows me a log, and I can see the personnel numbers that's included in here. If there are messages, it shows me yellow for warning or error, so I can fix my master data also. And also the PDF version again, and again I have again the information that can be configured. I can save, I can print. So all of this is possible. If I just have a look at the profit share certificate, we've done this profit share for the specific employee. If you remember, it's the same employee. So if we run the certificate, we can have a look at the certificate as well. And there we find the certificate for this employee. If you can remember, there was 500,000, 10% was to distribute it, and this is the portion that the employee will get from this. Okay, so this is all here. It's all in the menu, all the reports, and they can all be found here. SUNAT reporting is very important in Peru, and therefore the solution provides for a SUNAT file generation. A SUNAT info type is provided for these purposes. There are some configuration tables and even a SUNAT configuration guide that explains what is needed to set this up. And this is all demonstrated in the next slide. For the SUNAT reporting also to work properly, there's some configuration to be done. Again, it can be done via the IMG in the Peru Payroll section. We find this node for SUNAT, and in there there's a lot of information that needs to be mapped so that to all the different tables so that the correct information can pull through. So in any of these, you just map whatever is needed to the different tables. So this is all done in the IMG. What also is needed is that there's an info type 9318, the SUNAT info type for Peru. So in here, there's a lot of information that is requested per employee, like type of work, occupation, disability, education. So this is also needed to be properly completed, otherwise the SUNAT reports won't work, or the SUNAT interfaces. To run the SUNAT, in the normal menu tree for Peru, there's this section, and the Peru, the payroll period, SUNAT file generation. So if one go in there, there are also a lot of information that can be set. Let's just have a look at a variant here. So again, a normal selection. There's this option for T-register and claim, dates, a couple of parameters, what employee address to use, what bank details type to use, what dependent type to use, submission date, also where to download the file to the PC or to the server. So once you run this, the SUNAT files will not generate if there are errors. So for this employee, it shows there are a couple of information missing. There's no ID document, the telephone, the email is mandatory, so that is not found. So this report will show you whenever there are errors and no files will be generated. So if I look at another variant, so the same applies. This is the plain one. If I run this one for this employee, it will show me the output, but it will also tell me that some files was transmitted. And if I go to my directory, the one that I specified, I will see the files that was generated. And just look at another example. And then we'll get back to that. So that was a plain one. If we look at a T-register one, the same information. I also want to download it to this directory. Tells me it's transferring. Information was transferred. So if I go back to my directory, I find all the files that was relevant with the different types. And if I open them, it's all just notepads. So these I can check, and these are the files that has to be submitted to is for the SUNAT interface. So all of this is available as explained here, and this is run on a daily and monthly basis. So this functionality is also available for the Peru, and there's also a document specified specifically for a SUNAT guide. So if you want to go through this one, you will find all the information that is needed, all the master data that's needed, all the configuration views, the mapping, all the structures. So all of this is very helpful and will guide one in setting up the SUNAT for Peru. Let's have a look at the support features. EPI-USE will support the Peru Payroll, and it's using a country version client portal. On this portal, one can log tickets. All the software releases can be found on here. and there will be documentation that can also be downloaded. So this is the way that EPI-USE will support the customer. For documentation, we supply a configuration guide that will take the customer through all the different features and aspects of this payroll and information on how to set up this payroll, and this will guide the configuration process at a client. Thank you so much for joining us as we demonstrated the Peru payroll for you. It is available as an on-premise solution or a partner cloud solution, or it's in the App Store as an ECP solution. If you want more contact, this is the contact details. Here's the number, office number, mobile number, and an email address. And we would love to hear from you. Thank you for your time.